Once this compound has been exported, it can be used over and over, as I mentioned before. To explain this, I'm going to hide the bush group and the point cloud group, and we're going to build one more set of instances for our set. I'm going to create an empty point cloud, so I'll actually just put this into maybe into a shaded mode for now. I'll create an empty point cloud, and I'm going to call this one shrub point cloud. And I'll add an ice tree to it. So I'll add an ice tree. So again, it adds it into the modeling stack. I'll just move that up into the animation stack, so if I freeze modeling, I don't destroy anything. And to this now, I'll bring in the high frequency set detail compound. It's not going to resolve right away because I don't have an emitter, but at least I have an input for the emitter. So I'll put that out into the execute port. And I'm going to bring in my emitter object, which is of course the hidden grid. I'll connect its value as my emitter. So now we resolve there. And right away it's actually, and I should have probably looked at this before, but it's actually looking for the tree instance group. When I exported my compound, it was pointing to this. So if I wanted this to be arbitrary, I could probably have just left this empty. But anyways, it actually found the tree instance group and applied to it. But if there wasn't one there, it would have thrown an error. So it's interesting that if ICE finds the attribute, it'll just work anyways. So that's kind of a neat serendipitous thing. So I can again control the number of instances, etc., but I want to use something different this time. So I'm actually just going to delete the contents of that window. So I should probably just re-export the compound with this new value set. And it's actually looking for my tree weight maps as well. So I'll actually just delete that. So now our compound doesn't work. It doesn't have the information it needs. So I'll paint a new weight map on my emitter. So property weight map. I could probably just reuse the one I previously was working on for the grasses, but this is going to be tighter to the houses themselves. So I'll call this the shrubs weight map. And I'll go and unhide my emitter object and again hide my pathway and grass area. And I'll begin to just kind of scratch out where I might want some of these trees to run. So maybe some trees used to run along kind of the side of this house here. Maybe not there. Let's see. Maybe just to the side of this church here. A couple trees kind of growing on the side of the road between these two houses. And a couple just acting as a bit of privacy for these windows. Could be a little grove, a little orchard of them right here. We'll just kind of smooth that out a little bit. And that should kind of about do it. Maybe I'll plant a last row on the way out of town on both sides of the road. Alright, so that becomes my new weight map. I'm not going to really grow anything back here. I'm going to leave that for the forest. And we need to bring in our weight map first. Let's point our weight map explorer to it. So under our location in our clusters folder, we should have our shrubs weight map. There it is. We'll access the weights. So that resolves the compound and it's working once again. And then as far as the instance object goes, well, we need to create that. So I'll go in and import another .xsi file. And for this one, I'm going to look for, I guess, do I have shrubs? I do have a shrub. Let's actually see what it looks like. Sometimes these don't actually export the way you want them to. Shrub. Where are you? Of course, it'll be parented under my emitter because I have had it selected. So I'll actually pull these into their own object view. So view general, object view. I love the object view for this. And I'll lock this down and go into a shaded mode. So already the the leaves aren't working that well. If I look in the materials manager, the answer will likely become apparent. So we've got the grasses clump. So we have this new material library here, and the only one that really looks out of place is this poplar leaf, and I'm imagining it's something to do with transparency. a look through this here. Transparency is not high here at all. If I start deleting these shaders, it'll find out pretty quickly. There we go. So it was the shrub leaf shader that was causing the problem. Sometimes brute force is an easy way to just deal with things. And this is actually good because I have a lot of materials in here that I don't really even need. So there's my little shrub leaf. It still looks like it has a texture connected in there, so I'll disconnect the diffuse attribute. And the reason I'm seeing this color here is, again, because I'm probably dealing with a vertex color map. Yep, I am. So I can use the map lookup shader to access that. So I'll use the presets pop out, and I'll just resize my material manager a touch here. I'll go and use a lookup shader, color map lookup, use it to drive the diffuse, and we can see that we get that color map now. There we go. We'll use the vertex color map. So I'm getting the green color now showing up in the render tree. Great. Or in the render region. So it means that some of these other items probably aren't being used. So the main shrub object, and then we have the rest of these pines and Lambert. Okay, so none of these are being used. So I can delete these. And I always like to delete any unused image sources and clips as I'm going, just to keep my sources and clips folder nice and clean. So this material library becomes my shrubs material library. I'm likely to combine them a little later on, but at the moment it's very handy to keep them all separated until I'm finalizing my scene. So we'll have a look at the center pivot of this guy. Actually, let's have a look at the main object as well. If I go into the render tree, back in here, it's still using an image shader, which I don't want, so I'll disconnect that. And I'll make sure that the diffuse is, again, driven by its vertex color map, which I would find in its clusters folder. So again, we'll use the color lookup into the diffuse and look up our vertex color there as well. So we now know we have a correctly shaded pair of objects. I also want the leaf to be a child of the main object. So I'll do that, and back in the object view, if I look at the pivot, we're already looking pretty good. I might want to center this pivot a little more. If I go into a center pivot mode, I'm going to start obviously offsetting the leaves from the main body because of the way parent-child works. So I can just child comp and move that pivot over myself. Okay, I'll just freeze the geometry operators on each of these by freezing the modeling. And it's probably important to cut the objects from the emitter. So I'll again take the leaves and parent them to the main object. Alright, that looks good there as well. So now I'm going to just go back in to my instance object, go and pick it. So I'll go and pick the shrub 1 main. So there, they actually are pretty large. But I also don't see their branches, so I'm going to make sure I pick their children as well. So now we've got this crazy, crazy trees. It's a little too big in my opinion. So we can go and start sizing them down a little bit. I'll take the min-maxes to a more reasonable number. These are fairly similar height trees, so we'll go with, say, 0.7 to 1. And our min-max Z, same thing, 0.7 to 1. And our height, we'll shrink that a little bit. Actually, we can use our overall tree size to bring them back down to size. Now it'll look pretty good there as well, too. So come on down to more reasonable size. There we go. Shorter trees. That looks a bit more reasonable. And we can up the number of instances of these guys. And of course, it's very easy just to go in and replace some trees in certain areas. they're a little bit too intrusive. So these are all working. This doesn't work so well. I'll just remove that, maybe place it a little bit further in front of the house. This one works well here. You could even have a couple of trees starting to root. Maybe these have been destroyed many times before, so maybe a couple of trees have had a chance to grow very close to the houses. Alright. So if I go back into the ice tree now, I've now just reused that information in the compound and recreated an entirely new set of instance data. So it's a very neat feature of working in ice and working with compounds. So that explains how to reuse compounds, and hopefully you've got a lot out of this and are able now to start making some pretty cool tools on which you can expand and improve on later on down the line.